I loved being an owner. I really loved working with a team. I was more passionate about the business side of things, the education, the systems, the structure, all the things that I felt like I was missing at the previous salons that I worked at. So this is one of the systems that I did at my salon, and I didn't do it because it was a system. I did it because I thought it was the right thing to do. The right thing to do for the team, but also the right thing to do for the client. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I think it's a win for everybody. How many of you are still servicing clients? Everyone. Is anybody not servicing clients and just in the back office? How many of you go over pricing during your consultation 90% of the time? How many of you go over price in your consultation prior to doing services 90% of the time, at least? Okay. How many of you have had a client complain about a price either at the front desk or after they have left after a service? How many of you have had a redo for something? How many of you send out a notice when the salon prices increase? How many of you post this on your front desk? And even worse, how many of you get nervous about telling your clients that there's a price increase? So I would like to solve that today. And I really think, and I believe that if you follow this, it will completely solve this. There is a transition. I'll be completely authentic. There's a transition because we already have clients that we've been doing for a really long time. So there's this transition of like, well, what do I do with Betty that's already been paying $90 every month for the last 20 years of her life, and now I'm going to raise my price? There is a little bit of a shift and a transition. The first part of what I want to address is thinking of every single person that comes and sits in your chair. How do we communicate with them in a way that we don't have to worry about price anymore? Because we're clear, we're authentic, and we're going over it and giving them all a choice every time. More questions. How many of you have a standard measurement when you use chemicals for your services? How about a standard of time for doing a service? And if you go over that time, are you charging more? Do you go over this with them? If you know that you're going to be running late, like, do they know about it? And how many of you have raised your prices in the last 6 months? Does it create anxiety or an uncomfortable feeling when you're raising your prices? All right, so I already went over it. I really believe that if you adopt this, it will solve, I'm going to say 80%. I'm throwing this number out, but I know that it works. My team did it. I've watched my other salons that I'm coaching do this, and they adopt this, and the hairdressers and the stylists and service providers that take this on, not only do they not have to worry about the price increase so much, but they also don't have this fear around letting their clients know that there was a price increase. Because a lot of times it just, you'll see as we go through the process, but it goes right into that beginning consultation so that they feel really comfortable. I believe that people buy two things, a good feeling and a solution to a problem. So if all of you would just take a moment and think about the last 3 things that you bought. If you want to write it down, write it down. If you have a team, share this with your team because I think it's really valuable. We're thinking about everything that we bought is either a good feeling or a solution. So if you say something like dog food, you needed to feed your dog. If you bought yourself dinner, it's because you wanted a good feeling and you needed to eat, right? So if we would picture our clients coming into us, they want to have one of these 2 things. They need a solution to a problem. They have gray hair or fadage or whatever it is that they have, but they also want a good feeling. They want a good experience while they're paying us this money to come in and be serviced. So I do think that if you do this, you will have a 30% increase in your revenue. Now, when I say revenue, most of you are salon owners. So this is the overall revenue in your salon. It's not necessarily your take home, but it's the overall revenue in your sales in the salon. Again, I call it the Moola Method way. Does everybody know what Moola is? But it is really as easy as ABC and 1, 2, 3. So this is what's going to differentiate you. The typical big problems that we have is service providers don't share the prices before we get started. Service providers don't necessarily offer options before we get started. Sometimes we've been doing somebody for a really long time and they come in and they sit in our chair and we say, hey Betty, how you doing? Oh, did you like it the last time? Great, super, I'll be back, I'm gonna go mix. And they go and they mix your formula. We see this a lot, maybe with ourselves and maybe with team members that we have. Prices are too low by the time the client reaches the front desk. Who's done this before? You do a service, You know that you should be charging them more. You know that you did additional color. You know that you took additional time. You know that you did all these additional things. But by the time you walk them to the front desk, you're like, that was 300, 200, 150, 125, 100. And we go lower and lower and lower because either we know their financial situation or we feel guilty about charging them the price for the services that we actually offer. So I'm hoping to fix that for all of you today too. All right, so problems that lead to other problems. Sticker shock at the register, redos and callbacks that we went over, lack of retention. One of the worst experiences a client can have is she gets her hair done, she feels beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and she gets to the front, and because you didn't go over price with her, which she perceived as being like this magnificent experience, and now all of a sudden you tell her the bill is $230 and she just wasn't prepared, you just went from 100 to 5. Right? And they want to find another operator. It would be like us going to the grocery store and seeing something on the shelf and just bringing it to the register and saying, you know, I've always paid this before, or it should be around this, and we bring it to the register and then we go, oh, no, I don't want that. Can you put that back for me? I don't want that anymore. That's essentially what we're doing to our clients because we don't have a sticker. We don't really have a menu that we're putting up. Maybe we have something on our website. Maybe we have something on the front desk, but we don't usually say, my haircut, ching, ching. 35, my color, 60, ching ching. We don't do that, right? So it's a surprise for them. So we need to take this into consideration before we start the services on them so that they know after this great experience and they love it, then when they go up, they've already accepted that payment. They already know this in the previous consultation in the beginning. Another thing that happens for us, we have stagnant revenue. If we're always doing the same thing, we're assuming that they're going to want the same thing, our revenue stays absolutely the same unless they say to us, hey, do you think I can get a couple highlights today, right? And this is especially for the women that are behind their chair and you're so busy you can't even imagine fitting somebody else into your schedule, right? Because you're already like, oh my God, where am I going to fit the highlights in? She just asked for them. How am I going to do this? So I'm going to give you some solutions for that as well. So stagnant revenue, we're bored. When we are doing the same thing day after day, client after client, and we know they make their routine appointments every 4 weeks, they're your 10 o'clock on the Thursday morning, every 5 weeks, they're your 11 o'clock, and we're doing the same thing on them, we get bored. We're artists, we're creative. We need to have inspiration in our day in order for us to feel good and energetic about what we're doing. So then there's disappointment for the stylist and the service provider, and then of course this prices is too low. This is a common thing. I talked to a lot of you in the last 2 days from the cocktail party to now, and we went over prices. And I just kept hearing, oh, I know that my prices should be higher. Yeah, I'm not charging enough. And it's like everybody looks down. It's like you feel the shame for yourself. And there's no judgment here. My goal is to get you to where you deserve to be, in the area that you're in. And there's a procedure to doing that, whether it's not necessarily looking at your competition because we all have our own value, right, for what we do, but it's having the organization in the beginning to start to decide on what our worth is and what we want to charge. And I'll say that these things are based on education, our time, and our chemicals in use. So they're like the 3 foundational things that I think that pull together our pricing structure. So I'm going to talk about McDonald's for a minute because I think McDonald's is an extraordinary company. I don't know if anybody knows, but when you buy a franchise of McDonald's, you have to go to McDonald's school to learn the way that they're doing it. So I don't like the idea in the hairdressing world that we're doing the same hamburger with 2 pickles and a little bit of ketchup and a little bit of mustard. But what I like about McDonald's is they've learned how to market to the consumer, right? And even now, I don't even have it on here. They have the extra size, right? And the extra large, or what do they call it? What is it called? Super size, right? We're just going to talk about small, medium, and large, which to me is the same as an A, B, and a C. So statistics say that if you're making an offering of 3 different choices, what do we think? We think most of the time people are going to pick the medium. But what actually ends up to happen is more people pick the large just from having the opportunity and getting excited about something, or that they think that there's a greater value to it or something, right? So what I'm going to talk about today, and we can see here, 42% bought large, 29% bought medium, 28.25% bought small. How many of you in your chair with your clients are staying small? How many of you have the potential to just offer them 1 more thing? How many of you have the potential to offer them 2 more things? And we're going to go into some scripting and stuff. So I'm kind of going through this so I can just like really jam into it because I want to make sure, for me, I want to make sure that I hit all these points for you, and then I can be a little bit looser and really have conversations and start to ask you questions as well about where your struggles are with your clients and some of the conversations you could be having. The pillars of the Moola Method. It's basically empowering the client to make the decision that best fits their budget and their expectation. Who it serves is the stylist, because they have a chance to increase your revenue by 30%. At the same time that we're increasing the revenue of 30%, there's clarity between us and the client. So what is better than that? Again, that they're not checking out at the front desk and saying, I don't even know what just happened. I can't even imagine that I'm spending that much money on my hair. But if they had known in the beginning and given you permission, it would be an entirely different experience at the end. All right, so the benefits. There's trust and clarity, there's no surprises, and there's clear vision for the future. I don't know if you all track your own analytics of benchmarks. You know, retention is huge. Retention and pre-book are two of the biggest things that keep revenue coming into our chair. So by us having this trust and loyalty, our clients are more apt to pre-book, and when you go through the method of this, say today they've chosen A as an example, as soon as they choose A, you can plan them for C the next time that they come in. If they're not financially geared towards spending that today, but they really like the vision, you can actually get them to pre-book their next appointment, make sure you have plenty of time in your schedule so you're not overwhelmed, and you can kind of lead them into their future, which we know that a pre-book and a retention makes it a lot easier for us. We're not out always trying to scout new clients. We're keeping and maintaining our clients that we have in the salon. Benefits for the service provider. There's client trust and loyalty. You increase your sales by 30%. And it's really like, it's 3 to 5 minutes in your consultation. That's how long it takes to go through this. Increase pre-book and retention. So these are the consultation things. This is what I think is generally happening in a consultation. This was when I had my team, I had what was called a client cue card, and it was basically 4 different cards, 4 different sections on a piece of paper, and this was my consultation. So you go over the history of their hair, their products that they currently use at home. We always go over this in the beginning because we don't want to sound like we're selling them something when we're educating them on what to use later. So if we're waiting to find out the products that they're using in their hair until later, hey, what mousse do you use? I'm going to use this one. What gel do you use? I'm going to use this one. It's not as authentic. It's not educating them. So we always want to find out in our consultation what products they're currently using in their home. Results expected for the day. Yeah, we might say, okay, so you're going to leave with it shorter and colored and no gray. Maintenance involved, how they're going to upkeep it, how often they have to come in, what kind of lifestyle they have. Are you asking your clients, what kind of activities do you do? How long do you take to do your hair? How often are you washing and shampooing your hair? The lifestyle education they already have for their hair, what styling tools and techniques that they do with themselves at home. So obviously, again, when you're doing their hair, you know where they're already starting, so you can gear them to where you need them to go. This creates a partnership, obviously, of trust and loyalty and honesty and health. But most operators and service providers skip this one main step, and that's talking about their price. So I'm really trying to give you all a really easy way to start going over your prices and feeling comfortable about it. I'll do the example first, and then I'll go back. We're going to foil your hair today and give you some layers with a little trim on the bottom. Does this sound like common language that you've all heard? Yeah. So this is what I would call a technique. We're telling them that we're foiling their hair. We're telling them that we're trimming their hair, and we're telling them that it's going to be a little bit off the bottom, and we're telling them that we're layering it. What do you think this sounds like to a client? What we're trying to do, and I'm going to shift the next one to techniques, right? So these are our technique words. Roots, single process color, shadow root, hairline color, color double process. And they're like, double processing, why are you processing me more than one time? Imagine, I just want you to read this and say, like, what are my clients thinking as I'm saying these things in the consultation? What is going through their mind? And maybe some of your clients even come in and they've read the magazines or they're watching the news and they're saying, I want a balayage. Them coming in and saying, I want a balayage, or I want teasy lights. I saw this on Instagram, or I saw this on YouTube, and this is what I want. This is a nightmare for us. For the clients to be able to come in and choose a technique is a nightmare. For us to also tell them the technique that we're using is also a nightmare. It's shifted our whole industry into us not feeling confident in raising our prices, because we're telling them everything that we're doing from the technical way in our head, and then we're giving that to them so that they come in and go, I want a touch-up and a toner. I want a touch-up and a toner and a little trim, and can you layer it around my face? You know, we don't need our clients talking about the language of the technical skills that we're doing. We're going to storytell our way to revenue. Do you guys like storytelling? Okay. Offering 3 options with pricing. So this is going back to the McDonald's theory. We're going to offer our clients small, medium, and large. This obviously empowers the client. This is a shift in thinking for us. We automatically think in technical terms. The hardest this is going to be, the hardest shift in this entire thing is for us to change the way that we are communicating to our client when our brain goes right to the technique. Both are equally as important because we're charging for the technique. We're charging for our time and we're charging for the product. The way that we speak and communicate with our client should be in a way of what I would call an outcome. So today I am really looking forward to creating a look for you with multiple dimensions and color that complement your skin tone and bone structure. The colors that I am choosing for you will bring out your beautiful green eyes and make your hair commitment low, as it will grow out very soft and natural, as I know that you are a busy mom of 3 and also working full time. I am going to create soft movement around your face so that your cheekbones are accentuated, and it will give you a sexy frame when you have to put your hair up on the days that you're running late and don't have time for styling. I can also see a natural potential for your waves in your hair, and I want to lighten it up to give you the easiest way to do this. This will cost $220. Do you have any questions before we get started on your canvas today? Who would feel comfortable saying that to your client? Can you hear the difference in I'm going to layer your hair and you're going to leave without gray, and we're doing a trim and layers? We're telling our client a story, which is a truthful story. I never sell somebody something that they don't want or need. It's not necessary. But if you can tell your client a story about an outcome that they could leave with, along with the price, and this is just one example, along with the price, they get to choose how much they want to spend and which technique that they want to do. So we can still offer them something very simple. We can offer them something in between, and we can offer them something that if we're like, we're the artist, and I want to do whatever the frick I want on her hair, but I have to tell her about it with the price. And they have the choice to say yes or no. How much more fun would your day be when that client says, do 3, do A, B, and C, do number 3. Plus you're like, cha-ching, cha-ching. But in a fair way. This is, again, I think it has to be fair to the client. All right, so adjectives. I want to give you guys some words to use, because then we're like, okay, well, what do I say? How do I change a technique into an expressive word so I can explain what they're going to end up with? All right, your repeat client typical scenario. Hi, Jane, how's your hair? Jane, everything is good. Stylist, would you like to do the same thing as the last time? Because I have my card right here and it has my formula right here, and I can just go do that and I can eat my lunch in 20 minutes. Yes, it was great, thank you. Great, I'll be right back, I'm going to mix.
Option A, price. Stylist, hi Jane, it's good to see you today. I've been thinking about you. I have a few ideas for you if you're willing to hear a few ideas. Jane, of course. Stylist, super. Well, I know what we have been doing has been working really well, and so I can absolutely do that again. And the cost is option A. I also have a few ideas for you if you're open to hearing about them.
I would love to see you ends with more adjective here, shine that richer, more reflective, more vibrant. To address this, I could do low lights for this option B.
So think of another word instead of low lights. Let me challenge you for a second.
We can add gloss, glaze, tone it. We can do highlights. We can do whatever.
Let me go back. Hold on, let me use my fancy remote here.
We can refresh, brighten, shape, light box.
Oh, you gave that right out, didn't you, Layla? Like, oh shit, can I stand right next to you? Do you see how it's a different way of thinking? Like, we automatically revert to talking about the technique. We do in our minds, and then it just comes out of our lips. So it's this shift in how we have to like pause and be present and say, how am I going to explain this that I'm not talking about a technique? It's like, what do they say? Like, put a penny in the jar every time you curse. It's like, put a penny in the jar every time you say a technique word out loud.
I might also suggest we create a few dimensional pieces that are lighter around your face to open up your cheekbones. This way we could create a beautiful shiny tone all over and have a soft lightness right around your face. It is super low maintenance, and it will last about 4 months before we need to do I don't have my glasses on. We need to decide if we want to do them again or take a different approach. I would love also to add into your hair color this amazing product called
Whatever it is.
that we will sell in your, seal in your color and support the softness in your hair that you are always asking for. The cost for this would be $200. There you go. Well, what do you think?
This is the most important line of the whole thing. This is the most important line. What do you think? And then you shut up, right? Because we tend to get nervous, and then we keep talking. So after you've given them their 3 options, you just pause. What do you think? Which one would you like to do today? And you wait until they choose which one, or they have questions. And then you go back into it if they have questions. Can you tell me about the first one again? Can you tell me about the second one again? I really want to do the third one, but I don't have the money today. Can we set that up for the next time? Do you see how it starts this entirely different engagement with your client and the experience? What was the difference? Did you notice how the Moola Method example, the client has the vision for the look and the feel of the outcome. The client also has an understanding of the cost. The client is more trusting. I mean, I don't know if any of you are doing anything close to this right now in your chair, but what I know is when I did my consultation with my clients and my team did the consultation with the clients, I would hear, nobody's ever done this with me before. Nobody ever explained my bone structure. Nobody ever explained this vision. I'm so happy already. This is the best haircutting experience. And I'm like, oh, wait till I do your hair. I'm not that good. Can you all see the mannequin good? My little arts and crafts set today? All right. So what we do in our schedules and what we do in our appointment books, in our POS systems, is we put a million different codes. Sometimes we put a million different codes and we pull them all together at the same time. Somebody said, I merge my services together and I actually, when they get more than one service, I discount the price. I go lower with the price. And so we're addressing that today, okay? And the way that we're addressing that is by service mapping. So this is a head. Everybody went to hair school. Everybody knows how to do a basic perm wrap. This is about a basic perm wrap. How many sections do I have in the head right now? Okay. So when I start going through this, I'm not going to sound like I'm talking gibberish, and you'll have a concept that there are 7 sections on the head. So have you ever worked next to somebody, or maybe yourself? You have a client in the chair, and they sit down and you say, it's a new service. It's a balayage. It's not a foil. Still taking me an hour. I'm using more color, but I'm going to charge you $250 instead of $175. And then the next time they come in, they're charging $275. Like they have no structure and system behind what they're charging. So I'm going to share a little bit with you today about how I recommend charging. This is an a la carte thing in our mind and in our system. How we communicate with the client is still about outcome. So we have to be like hairdresser mode and then client experience mode, okay? Or salon owner mode and then experience mode. So what this is, it's a basic, and I'm just going over color today, but it actually goes through keratins, it goes through perms, it goes through everything. But this is the hair color thing because we are at Color Expert Solutions here today. So CB, I have outlined everything with color in my POS system. It starts with a C. Can you all imagine why it starts with a C? Yes. Okay. I like reports to be organized. If I start this as just base, and then I have foil, and then I have something else, I can't find this shit in my analytics when I'm printing out my report. And this is really frustrating. So if I start everything with the same letter, this makes sense to me. It's logical. So I start everything with hair color in my system, and I used Millennium for 19 years. I started everything with hair color to start with a C. So this is what typically, I'm going to share a little bit, a CB, which is the code in our computer. There's 3 parts of this because there's a client experience part, because now our computers and our POS systems also send text messages out to our client. So this sheet is longer and bigger when you're filling it out, but I want to explain so that you don't go home and have your client get a text message that says, I'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. for a CB. And they're like, what is the CB? Breaker 1, 2, breaker 1, 2. So we want to make sure that there is this code that goes in your system if your system allows for it. Then there's what we would call our technique for doing this system and what would fall underneath that code. And then there's also the confirmation. So I'll share with you as an example, anybody that was getting a color service, the confirmation just said hair color technique. It didn't say you're getting a touch-up. It didn't say you're getting a toner. It didn't say you're getting a highlight. It just said you're getting a color technique. Because the next time when they come in, I want them to sit in my chair, and I want to tell them 3 different color techniques that I can do, and I want them to choose which one they want, okay? So CB, meaning it's roots, it's a single process, it's a shadow root. I also hear at salons when I'm working with them and I'm converting them into this method, well, I charge less for a shadow root. And I say, why? It's going on the root. And they're like, I don't know. I put it on at the shampoo bowl. I said, well, why don't you put it on at the chair? Or, you know, are you doing less of a service? To me, the head is a couple of things. It's a base, it's a midshaft, and it's an ends. Everybody's head has a base and a midshaft and an ends, whether you have long hair or short hair. So to me, a CB is a base. A CB half, I know that for my salon, we had people coming in every like 2 weeks to 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. So we did a hairline color. It was literally hairline and like 1.5 inches of wherever they would part their hair. So we did the CB in half, and if they were in a day after their 3-week period, they paid full price for their touch-up. So it was a way that we could work with our clients that were like our regulars and didn't like to see their gray hairlines. So there are 7 sections on the head. They're not in any chronological order. This could be 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, but this could be 1 and 2, and this could be 3. Does that make sense for everybody so far? So basically this is taking into consideration that there are 7 sections on the head, and however many sections you are doing a color technique in, you would be charging a price for that, based on your time, your product used, and obviously your education. We're just going to take that into consideration that everybody has a wonderful education. So C1, we're doing 1 section of the head. We're doing, I don't care if you're doing foils, you're painting it on with, you're putting cotton, you're putting plastic, you're doing whatever it is. On the color mapping, you're figuring out the time that's allowed for each service for a certain amount of product that's mixed to be able to do their hair. I will go into the extra and the more formulas and everything as I go down the line. I just want to talk about the difference between like a foil and a balayage, because this is usually where somebody's like, but a balayage is so much more work. And I say, okay, is it still the same amount of time? No, I can do it faster. And I'm like, well, wonderful. I'm like, but I use a lot of color. And I'm like, okay, we can solve that. Because if somebody wants to charge more for a balayage than they're charging for a foil, it has to be legitimate. Like Victoria's Secrets sent out their magazine, and in one economic area they were charging one price, and in another economic area they were charging a different price. This is just, to me, morals, values, ethics. For me, that's what I wanted to do in my salon. I want every client to really have a full understanding of what we did, but I also wanted to get paid for everything that we did and every bit of chemical that we ever had to use. If a full head highlight is taking you an hour and a balayage is also taking you an hour, why would you charge them more money? Does anybody have like a really good explanation for that other than more color being mixed? A shift in our thinking of how we work with our clients, because the hardest thing that we have is that when we're doing the consultation, to price them. So if we're thinking about all these different little caveats of our pricing, isn't that even harder to give them the price? Where if we just have like, this is how we do it. This is how we do it, right? So, but a balayage, most of the time, needs more color. So I do believe that it is more work, and I do believe that there's a different skill set to it. So we have the ability to charge them more, but charge them more fairly. So we can still explain they're getting a color technique, and I will also need to use additional color on your hair. All right, so we're going to go down. C through 7 is basically 7 sections of the head. Painting on, foiling, fingering it on, whatever you do, it's this one set price for the section. Somebody will say, well, what if I just do like a couple here and a couple here? I just want to do a money piece. What do I do for that? Do I do a C2? Because that's a lot of money. You know, I can't charge that. So we give the option to be able to do a CF, which is one foil or one piece or however you want to get it on their hair, but one little area. So I'll talk about the pricing a little bit, because I'm sure that you'll say, well, how do I charge for that? If you would have a C1, a mohawk section, and you would say, if I was going to do this and put color in there, how many foils do I think I would get in that? 6, 7? Divide your C1 by how many foils you would think on average you would be getting in your C1 section, and that's how much you would be charging per foil. My salon, we had 4 or 5 different levels of stylists that after they reached certain benchmarks, they would get a price increase in their services, based on their benchmarks, their retention, their pre-book, their taking classes, all of these other things. So this is how they got a raise in their pricing structure. And then I also had a sliding scale of commission that started at 40 and went up to 60. So CXC. CXC is mixing extra color of the same formula that you already did. This price and this amount that we would charge. So I think our touch-ups were 65, and that was 40 grams of color, 40 grams of developer. But of course, my team, I was like, start at like, if you need less, use less. And we were really good at that because I used to have the big glass jar, the big glass like cookie jar there that would fluff up with all the bleach and everything in it that would scoop everything out because I didn't want it in the drain. So the extra batch of color was 20 grams and 20 grams developer, and we charged $20 for this. So this is where we're another half a scoop if you're using a decolorizer. So this is where if you're doing the balayage and you're mixing 3 bowls of this stuff and you start it with 1 scoop because that's the measurement for it, and you mix up another one, you need another scoop, there's a $20 additional charge and a $20 additional charge. And we go over this in the consultation. Of course, we can give them a little range, but we go over this price in the consultation. So this is color, extra color. Then there's color, additional formula. So this is also what I hear a lot. Well, I put highlights and lowlights in them. And I'm like, awesome. What did you charge them? The same as I do for a foil. And I said, this is about education. This is where our education comes into play. If we're doing a highlight and a lowlight, we need to we need to know the technique that we're doing and what we're putting in. We need to know the 2 different formulas that we're doing. So we charge this differently. And we charge this as an additional charge of 40 to mix that second color that goes into their hair. So there's all different ways to make money into it that we're thinking about in the beginning in this consultation that we're totally technical, but explaining it to them as an experience. But this is where the knowledge comes into play. This is where you're getting paid for your expertise. Not everybody would be able to put a low light into the hair next to a highlight. You have the experience and the technical skill to be able to make a hair color out of 2 different colors going in. This is your skill set. So soap cap, color corrector, decolorizer. So some of us use this and some of us aren't charging for this. That's why it's on here. We're doing these corrective services and we're just like, oh shit, it did this, I gotta do this. You know, these are things that we have to charge for too. There's a product cost that goes along with those things. So the next one is toner. So toner, glaze, ends, midshaft and ends. There's a formula that goes along with that as well, which to me is 30 grams. 30 grams for doing a toner and no more. There's so many times I see the hairdressers come to the station. What was the big bottle that they were using? And it's like 8 ounces, and they have an entire bottle of 8 ounces filled with Shades EQ. And you're like, by the time, and then people don't want to charge for it as well or charge appropriate prices for it. And I'm thinking, oh my God, we do like a touch-up in 7 minutes. Like my girls were trained to do a touch-up 15 minutes, but 7 minutes was like the ideal goal. And then they're charging 65. And then they want to charge 30 for an 8-ounce bottle of toner that's going on their ends. And that just took them 45 minutes to pull it through their hair evenly. What are we doing wrong here? Like this is just, to me, a little bit ass backwards. We need to be able to charge for this service as well. It's more work, more energy, and more color sometimes. So the base price of that is C-toner. For this, if it was 30 grams of color and then the developer on top, if I needed a CXC on top of that again, that would be another 20 grams, and I would charge them an additional 20 for that. So somebody's toner might end up costing 50 to do their ends and not 30. And by all means, I would be charging for it because I know some of you are not charging and you're just doing, oh no, I know I need to tone it myself, and you're doing this at the shampoo bowl. I really want you to get paid for every service that you do. Yeah, I like the gram. I switched to the grams. When I first opened the salon, I did ounces, and I switched to the grams because you can still divide it really easy. Whether you're doing 30, it's like 1 part, 1 part, 1 part, or 2 parts, 1 part kind of thing. You still have the visual for that. And you end up, when you're doing a ½ an ounce and you need that extra part, you always overmix when it's that ½ ounce. Where when it's in the grams, you can kind of like play with your formulas a little bit more and you save a lot of money on your formulation. So brow tint. Who is doing brows in the salon on your clients? Are you charging? Going forward, start charging for it, because when the client asks for it, you can say, it's an additional fee of this. It's an additional fee of this. It's these little tiny things. This is A, B, and C. A, we can just do your regrowth. Oh, you need your brows done too? Super, it's gonna be 75, not 65, because we're doing your brows as well today. And then extra time. So extra time, 15 minutes, depending on what when we do this chart in the full scope of things, we actually break down your services as a per minute. So right now you see it as 30 minutes or 60 minutes kind of thing, and then you start putting the prices in. After we go through the whole spreadsheet, we actually break that down and say, what are each services per minute? So I'll give you an example of one of my clients that I was working with. She does vaginal steams, facials, skincare, and she's like, no, I like that service, I make a killing. And I'm like, okay, so we go through her whole chart, and it ends up that there's like a couple of services of hers were at like $4 a minute, and some of the other services were at like 52 cents. And I was like, come on, we have to get some balance for you. Like, we want you as the service provider to have some kind of balance, that all of your minutes have this kind of price point to them. Right. So we're always covering, again, our costs, and then we're also covering ourselves for the minute that we're charging. So by going through this, we break all that down as well. All right, then hair cutting, I obviously start this with an H so that I can find these in my analytics. And I hit a bunch of these, men, women, children, all that stuff. And then blow drying, I start all those with an S. I have a couple salons that do weed ad. They do weed ad. And again, you can see the price difference here, but their timing is really different. And this is where the weed ad cut goes into a different price point, because again, we're focusing on that by the minute charging, so that when they're doing the weed ad cut and they've gotten certified in that, it's not just getting certified in it, it takes longer to do that service. So steps to doing this method. So I do a course on it that I have online, but I want to give you the tools that if you really want to take this back right away, these are the things that you need to think about and put into place, okay? Simplifying your service codes. Separate every single one into an a la carte line. So it would be your timing, your product usage. If you have a level system, obviously having your level system in place. Shortening your service codes, but making them all a la carte. I mean, it actually is really simple. If you want to write, that extra column to be like, what techniques would I put into this one? Like, how do I need to wrap my head around this new concept that I've never done before? You could do that as well. So simplifying your codes, service, product, and price map all of your services using the example of a mannequin. How to set up your Moola method in your POS system, because you might need to go in. You have all these appointments already in your book, right, that you're already doing. So you have all these appointments, so you really want to think through the process of this, like, how do I get my appointment book set up to follow suit with this? And that's by putting in all these new service codes in there, and then taking your time and moving all these clients into these new service codes. You're going to love it when you start to see all your add-ons. And this is how you're going to start tracking this revenue, because you're going to say, what I would have done before and what I'm doing now, I can totally see the increase because I'm line by lining them. I'll give you the example with my team. From level to level, part of their qualification to go from one level to another, every time a client comes in the chair, it's considered one service. So I'm going to call that a unit. So a service unit meaning one. That's a given. If they're in your chair, you got a one. That's like a free. But as you progress through the line of 1, 2, 3, and 4, that also went up, because obviously I wanted the add-on services to be a part of why they got an increase. Not just to sell a service, but I knew that they were educating the client. So the reward is always that the stylist is doing their job, creating the experience. So part of that was me tracking their units of service. If you clump your stuff together in the computer and you try and make it simple, it's a touch-up and a blow dry, a touch-up and a haircut, you're going to lose sight of these things, not just for yourself, but also for your team. And I think that it's an important differentiator that you have with your team, so that when you're meeting with them, you can say, you know what, congratulations. I see that you're doing on average, 3 services per client. That's an amazing experience that you have and that your client has with you. So how to set up your system in the computer is by putting all these new codes in, transferring all of them, and making a line by line based off of your scale that your spreadsheet that you're doing and the timing. Allow yourself enough time to do a proper consult with the Moola method at the end of it. So you're doing your consultation, the history, and all those other things that we went over in that previous slide, but you're allowing yourself an additional 3 minutes to give them those options. You also need to allow yourself some time in your day, which is really strange because we're used to just working like crazy and not eating all day. You need to allow yourself 2 gaps in your day if you're working a 12-hour day, so that you have catch-up time and you can say yes to everything that everybody wants that day. At the worst case scenario, you're going to eat lunch. You all own your businesses. At the worst case scenario, you'll do your inventory. At the worst case scenario, you're going to worry about your financials and you're going to pay your bills. You're going to do something with that downtime if you don't use it and everybody chooses A. But allow yourself the opportunity to increase. Because if you can't increase by doing the service and having to say no, you're losing out on 30%. So if you're doing the math makes sense by taking your break, by putting the gap in your day. And know your prices. This is huge. I teach a course called Fierce Financials where I teach women all about their money, from their personal being through their business, saving, retirement, debt reduction, all of these things. This is like my baby passion. This is what I really love to do. Fierce Financials is also really important that you all understand your money. You all have an exit strategy. You all are saving for your future. If you do want to take the course, I would love you to. We will go through all of these and micromanage it for you and get you set up in your system. So one of the hardest things for us to do is to remember all these prices, even though we've simplified it. So Elaine hooked me up with her son's friend who builds apps. And he totally sees my vision, and I want to do an app for it. So you can literally have your phone open, and it's like column A, column B, and column C, and you're like, tick, 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 tick. So it gives you your prices right at the bottom. So there's a whole back end to that you're just putting all your prices in, and then instead of you trying to have to do all this math, because that's overwhelming, it'll help you to do that. The pricing calculator, but it's literally showing all three at one time. But know your prices. I mean, I never had an app, and we did it for years. So you don't actually need the app, but if you know your prices, but if that would, I think for us as entrepreneurs, we get our prices, we have our structure. But when you're working with the stylist and you're trying to coach them and teach them a technique like this and an outcome like this, sometimes they need support from us. All right, so taking the course. It gets you more confident. We'll take a deeper dive into getting a taste of what today was and more details and examples. You'll get all the tools you need to get organized on the back end and prepared to launch with complete confidence on how you charge, keeping it fair and accurate for all the levels in your salon and with yourself. How to set up your POS system and learn how to create your service map of prices to describe outcomes and techniques on the hairdresser side. Your internal translation that you're kind of going through in your head. And then lifetime access. And I just want to tell you just a small little bit about what I really love to do. So I had mentioned the Fierce Financials. I teach and like to support women in, again, debt consolidation, hopefully having no debt, exit strategies, saving for retirement, organizing your bills. And I have my whole own system that I created. You don't use QuickBooks at all. You're ready for your tax return. You understand what all your write-offs are before they even go over to an accountant. You don't need a bookkeeper. And that's what I really love to do. I do one-on-one coaching, which is called Partners in Possibility, where I help people with systems, structure, organization, team building, pretty much. I wouldn't say everything. I don't like marketing. I don't like social media. You can see from my social media. And then I do Freedom Tribe, which is 2 monthly calls. And I do one myself that's a focus session on learning something. And then the other one, I bring on a speaker to share knowledge that I think is important for our industry. So I've brought on people talking about wills. I've brought on financial advisors, credit card masters, how to master like credit card points and stuff like this. And then the Moola Method. And then I have retreats in Ibiza. So we just finished our first retreat in Ibiza, and that was just way too much fun. I can't even call it a retreat. I want to thank you guys for being open to hearing the concept today, because it's not so easy to hear something new when we've been hairdressers for as long as some of us have, and thinking about a shift in our thinking. And I heard, this is awkward. I don't like this. I don't want to do this. This feels so weird. This is the shit that we do every day in our chair. These are our peers. Imagine. Practice this. Use your family, use your friends. Just start thinking every time you see somebody, ABC, ABC, ABC. What is my pricing structure that goes along with this? So you can start really getting proficient at your language. There's like step by step, right? It's baby steps. I always say day by day, step by step. So the day by day, step by step is thinking in a way of description. So think about fashion, or think about like how your home is designed. Oh, it's modern, it's sleek, it's colorful, it's soft. These are the ways that we describe other things in life. But when it comes to describing a look that somebody has in their hair, we go right to teasy lights and foils and balayage. So start to try and think when you're looking at somebody's hair, how would I describe that? Describe how somebody already looks. Get good and proficient at that. Like, oh, look, her soft curls, slight little sexy bang there, little weight down the bottom, makes it look really thick. You know, we start to think about these things, start to look at people in the way that you can describe them in a way that's descriptive, utilizing the adjectives and the outcomes versus going into that, oh, I would foil the hell out of that. You know, that kind of thing. So if we can start to get that language down and really start thinking about things like that, that'll be like your first step. Your second step, start to really know your prices. Figuring out your prices is obviously super important so that you're not just pulling something out of your butt as you're going through a consultation. It's really important that you know the prices for each thing that you're doing and you're able to talk to the client in the beginning fluidly as you're describing their new outcome along with the price that you're offering. You guys all have my contact. Please friend request me or something so we can all keep in touch. This was really special for me.